The American dream your parents sacrificed everything for is now the nightmare you're trying to escape. For our parents, leaving Asia was the only path to a better life. For our generation, staying here might be the biggest mistake we could make. I always believed my future was here in North America. But after my own family's home was broken into, feeling of safety was gone, and I needed a new plan. Every day, my team and I interview people for our Mandarin learning program designed for Cantonese speakers. We always ask them the same question: why do you want to learn Mandarin? For years, the answers were kind of what you'd expect, right? I want to communicate better with my family. I want to stop missing out on career opportunities. I want to feel proud of my Chinese heritage. I want to be able to pass the language on to my children. But just this year, a new answer started popping up in waves that I'd never heard before in our almost half a decade of helping Cantonese speakers learn Mandarin. And this answer came not just once, not just twice, but a bunch of times. The US is going downhill, and I want to learn Mandarin so I can move back to Asia. For decades, the story of our parents was a one-way street. Leave Asia, sacrifice everything, and move to the West for a better life. Because the West meant more opportunity, a better quality of life, and prosperity. So what's behind this shift? Why are more and more Asian Americans looking to leave America and move back to Asia? In this video, we're gonna break down the 7 biggest reasons we've heard from speaking with over 400 people about why they're feeling pushed out of the West. The 7 surprising reasons they're being pulled back to Asia, and the one hard truth that nobody who makes this move wants to talk about. And it all starts with safety. Let's talk about something that can be hard to admit, even to ourselves. That feeling you get when you're just walking down the street, has it changed for you over the last few years? Because where I'm from in Toronto, there's been a noticeable rise in things like break-ins. My own family home was broken into before, and let me tell you, that feeling of violation, it's not something that you ever really forget. And it makes you wonder, if you can't even feel secure in your own home, how are you supposed to feel secure in the other parts of your life? And this feeling goes even deeper when you realize it's not even random. It's not like they just break in randomly. There's a famous rap song with lyrics that explicitly talk about targeting Chinese neighborhoods for robbery because they don't believe in bank accounts.
You find a house and scope it out. Find a Chinese neighborhood. They don't believe in bank accounts.
This rapper is not even like anti-Chinese maybe. He's just stating what the overall sentiment is in the community, which is, let's go rob the Chinese people because they probably have cash lying around, right? Which, by the way, if anyone's watching this, I got nothing. Okay? This whole thing, when it happened, it made this knot in my stomach, right? I find myself now on the phone with my mom, and even when I see what happened in America with, the Asian American attacks and everything, and she mentioned, she's nervous to go to certain places. You see another headline about an elderly Asian person being attacked in broad daylight. A poll found that nearly 2/3 of Asian Americans feel unsafe in their day-to-day lives. So this is actually one of the most common reasons when people come and say, hey, I want to learn Mandarin so I can move to Asia. This is one of the main reasons they give. And I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Because when you think about it, it isn't that crazy. Because having lived and traveled all over Asia myself, I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's some crime-free utopia, right? Things happen everywhere. But in terms of safety, the best way I can describe the difference is this. The sketchiest neighborhoods in parts of East Asia and Southeast Asia, it's the only place I've been, by the way, don't even compare to the sketchiest neighborhoods in the States. In fact, sketchy in Asia just feels run down and old, right? You feel safe there for the most part. Imagine feeling that complete peace of mind, not just for a vacation when you go to Asia, but as your daily reality. The stories sound absurd until you actually experience them for yourself. But you see the different mindset is because that just doesn't exist for the most part in Asia. It doesn't exist in Hong Kong. You're not gonna go find some sketchy neighborhood and get mugged by some random guy and some random guy's trying to shoot you with a gun. Even having all the money in the world can't buy you peace of mind here. You could have a great financial future, but you still don't have peace of mind in America because some parts are just sketchy. What if there was a place where you could have that safety and also potentially a much better financial future? Because after safety, this is the second main reason we've heard people say they want to move over to Asia, and it's career. It feels like we all play by the rules, right? I'm Asian, right? Got the good grades, landed the good job, and put in the hours. But for my friends, sometimes they say, it feels like they're stuck on a professional treadmill watching everyone else get ahead. And in their minds, it's like they're in a big meeting, they know their stuff, they have the solution to a problem, but they hesitate, worrying if they'll come off as maybe too aggressive. And then a colleague works out a similar idea and gets praise for their leadership. Or it's that feeling of being like, what if they don't take my input well? I'm afraid to say it, right? Or it's that feeling of, you've been at this company for a long time, and then the new, guy who happens to be Caucasian or whatever gets the promotion, right? For a lot of people, it's a really real phenomenon. Asians make up 27% of professionals in many companies, yet they're less than 14% of executives. Personally, I don't like to believe in a bamboo ceiling, but believing there's a permanent invisible barrier that I can't break through just because I'm Asian doesn't actually help me. It kind of feels disempowering, right? My mentality has always been, just follow the rules that successful people follow, follow and do what they do, and then I'll see success myself. But I also know the feeling of being held back is very real for a lot of people, right? But what they explained to me was like, it's a real thing and it's a really heavy weight to carry. And that's why for them, this idea of moving to Asia was so powerful, because they were like, when you think about it, you know, if we move to Asia, and they're like, I've heard from my expat friends, you're not just trying to break through a ceiling anymore. You don't have, first off, you're moving to a place where that ceiling doesn't even exist for you. And here's the crazy part where the whole game flips, right? The very thing that might be seen as a disadvantage here, for them at least, you know, your bicultural background suddenly becomes your superpower over there, because the fact that you understand the Western market and can speak the local language fluently, if you can, that is, makes you a massive asset. You know, you're not just another employee, you're like a bridge between two worlds. And this is something that I've actually seen. You know, I have numerous expat friends who moved to places like Hong Kong and Singapore and literally doubled the income they were making here. So they didn't just get a fresh start, they got a new level of career growth that they never really thought was possible. And so while you can debate whether that still exists, what's undeniable is that a world of opportunity opens up when you place yourself in an environment where your unique background is not a barrier, but actually a big advantage. All right, so we've talked about safety and career growth, but let's get down to what affects you every single day. Your wallet and the actual quality of your life that money buys you, right, is cost of living. The financial advantage of being in Asia is staggering. To use China as just one powerful example, the data shows that the overall cost of living can be about 45% lower, and the biggest expense for us, for most of us, is rent. And it's a lot cheaper in China, about 60-70% cheaper. Feel this difference in your daily life. I was in China recently and took a 30-minute Uber that cost me the equivalent of $8. My first thought was, how much would a 30-minute Uber cost you back in Toronto? But where this really hits home for me is the food. Here in North America, you go out for an average meal, it runs you at least $30, not including tips. And half the time, let's be honest, food is kind of mid. Now compare that to Asia, where whether you're at a hawker center in Singapore, a street stall in Malaysia, or a ramen shop in Japan, you can get an incredible feast for like a fraction of the price. It's a life where going out for dinner is like a casual every single day thing, not like a calculated expense that you have to budget for. And the crazy part is that it tastes better. And which brings me to the service culture, okay? For the most part in Asia, it's better. Okay, maybe not in Hong Kong. Well, we all know, you know, that's part of the culture. Hantang is not the friendliest place. This isn't just about cheaper meals and Ubers. It's a reflection of a completely different social contract, right? Like in Japan, we got efficient bullet trains. You know, Singapore, super clean public transit that actually works. Modern infrastructure that actually works, right? Affordable healthcare. I mean, when you combine those massive career opportunities we talked about with a significantly lower cost of living, the appeal is pretty undeniable. It's about building a life of abundance where your money actually goes further and the quality of your life is just better. A better life isn't just about what you can buy, it's about kind of the infrastructure that supports you every day. And that's where between Asia and America, it's night and day. So let's get into another huge reason that I've heard from people why people are wanting to move to Asia is the overall quality of life and public infrastructure. Now for me, I'm actually a numbtot, if you know what that is. I love good public transit. So when I went to LA for the first time, I remember I saw the price of Ubers and I was like, hell no, I'm taking the subway, because there's a subway in LA. And you would not believe the reaction I got from every single creator, every single friend I have there. Because every single person from LA that I talked to, whether they were local or not, told me that they had never taken the subway or bus before. Same thing in Chicago. Same reaction when I brought up the BART in San Francisco. They looked at me like, yo, that shit is sketchy. And look, when I went on the LA subway, you know, I kind of got why they were sketched out. It was a little dirty, a little sketchy. But in Asia, public transportation is clean, it's normal, it runs smoothly, and you don't feel unsafe at any time. It's just a part of life. I'm gonna be real, the only part in America where public transit, like a subway system, actually feels like it's actually good is in New York. And to be honest, New York is dirty. It's not the best compared to Asia. And so that's what people say, and that's what people say to us. But even more than how you get around, it's also about health. Because I'll never forget the moment. I remember I was in LA and my friend fainted right in front of me. And my first instinct as a Canadian was to call an ambulance. So my other friend literally stopped me. He was like, whoa, hold on. Okay, like we don't know his insurance. Let's just give it like 5 minutes. You know, he'll probably wake up. Thank God he did. But the fact that the first thought isn't like, yeah, help, but how much is it gonna cost? That's weird. You know, it's strange to me. And I've unfortunately been a patient in a lot of hospitals, not exactly a bragging point, but it's given me a unique comparison. I fainted in Singapore as well, and I woke up in a hospital with an IV drip. And I was bracing myself for a really heavy bill because it was in Singapore. I don't recall, but it was only like a couple hundred, maybe it was like $100, $200. In Thailand, I got scratched by a wild dog. I went for a rabies shot and I was in and out in 30 minutes and it it wasn't anything substantial either. It wasn't enough that I would remember how much it is. That's how little it was. Like, it wasn't nothing, but I remember how much every single health appointment I've had in America has costed me. I don't remember how much the ones in Asia costed me. This one's the craziest one. I remember I had a bad eye infection when I was in Utah, and I saw an eye doctor there. It cost me $300 and it didn't fix it. A week later after that Utah trip, I went to Taipei, and I saw an eye doctor there for like $20. Got an entire like eye check, and my eye was healed and my eye was better. $20. That's the power of a system that's built for access. And I was able to explain my systems clearly. The doctor understood perfectly, and it completely blew my mind. And I've literally now planned out Taiwan trips for my upcoming medical expenses. Like I have to do gut and grafts, which costed me $5,000 in Toronto, and it cost me a fraction of that in Taiwan. And so just like even comparing to my childhood, in Canada where we have free healthcare, I just remember our hospitals being so slow, so much waiting. And a little while ago, I was actually in Baoding. It's actually a tier 3 city in China. So it's like China goes by tiers of cities. So tier 1's like Beijing. Tier 3 is like, it's their shittier cities, right? And so you would think in a tier 3 city, it'd be a crappy hospital, but no. Went in, scanned a QR code, and I was in and out in 30 minutes. And the efficiency was just on another level. And so just imagine a world where interacting with public services is like efficient, seamless, cheap, not gonna put you broke, and it's actually good. And it's crazy to me because in our parents' generation, North America truly was this dream world. And to be fair, I mean, they were right. I'm gonna be real, like China 30 years ago is not the same as China today. You know what I mean? But the rate at which things have progressed in so many Asian countries has completely changed the game. And so the foundation for life, safety, career, daily costs, and health, I mean, it's amazing. On top of that, I gotta bring this one up, right? Because this is one that someone also brought up to me on a call when they said why they wanted to learn, but it's entertainment. Two more things. But your life outside of work. Have you ever felt in America or Canada, I feel this all the time, you're kind of stuck in a bubble. Same things, same foods, same culture, day in, day out. Like for me, when I go to America, it's not a big culture shock. It's the same culture. A 2-hour flight from Toronto gets me to New York at most, right? Boston, pretty much same culture, North American culture. It's cool, but it's more or less the same, right? Now, a 2-hour flight from Hong Kong, suddenly I'm in Vietnam, right? A little longer on the plane, and I'm in Tokyo, I'm in Seoul. A completely new country, a new language, new food, a whole new world to explore, not like on like a 10, 20, 2-week vacation trip, but just for the weekend, because you can, it's a short flight, right? And it's not just by air. The infrastructure makes everything super accessible. You can hop on a bullet train in China and be in a completely different province with its own unique dialect, food, cuisine, faster than it takes to get through airport security for a domestic flight in the States. Like that's the difference. And so in North America, you're basically, in the same vast culture unless you commit to a crazy long, expensive flight where you have to get a vacation day to get everything booked off. When you're based in Asia, the entire continent becomes your backyard. Imagine your life. Like 1 month, you're getting street food in Bangkok, the next you're exploring temples in Kyoto, next month you're diving in the Philippines. It's the reality for a lot of people. It's a reality. It's honestly the reality that I was doing when I was living in Asia. Like it's so much closer. Even if you're just in Hong Kong, you can take a trip to Shenzhen or like take a trip to like Guangxi something anytime you want. It's so fast and it's easy. It's just a completely different level. And so you're at the center of so much life, so much history, and so much culture, and it's literally all at your doorstep. And so when it comes to entertainment for me, and this is something that student brought up with me when he was explaining to me why he wanted to move to Asia to learn, why he wanted to learn Mandarin just to move to Asia. And so on top of that, when it comes to entertainment, for some reason, and this thing that another student brought up to me too is you just have more fun there. There's nowhere for me that I've had more fun than in Hong Kong. And I think for me, it comes down to the last point, which is belonging. And so let's get to the real heart of it. Actually, last 2 points. Let's get to the real heart of it, right? Beyond the career, beyond the money, beyond the safety, what's that one feeling that we all want? And for many of us, for me personally, it's a feeling of belonging. Growing up, you guys, if you heard my story, I always felt like I was caught in the middle. It was like I was too Asian for the West, too Western for Asia. The classic Asian American story. I remember hating going to Hong Kong as a kid. I'd get there and feel like I couldn't relate to anyone. And honestly, I had this weird superiority complex. Like I was better than everyone because I was from North America. If you're from there, please don't kill me. I've talked to a lot of ABCs who felt the exact same way growing up, okay? I was a kid. But as I got older and I started to value my Asian roots more, I noticed that my closest friends just happened to be Asian, right? Not because I was blocking anyone out, but because we just naturally connected. We want to do the same things, eat the same foods, listen to the same music, right? And so when you get older, you're more selective with your time. When I'm in Hong Kong or Taiwan or anywhere else in Asia, I might not know the streets, but somehow I feel more at home. I feel it when I hear the lady in the airport speaking Cantonese, even though English is my most fluent language. I feel that when I get more excited about a new Chinese player in the NBA than a Canadian superstar winning Finals MVP, even though I grew up in Canada. It's a really weird identity thing, and I think I figured out what it is. See, here in North America, I'm always aware that race is a thing. You know, I'm Asian, you're white, he's black, whatever, okay? But in Asia, where everyone looks like me, I feel like I'm just me. You know, people can say, you know, I don't see race, but I mean, you do, right? The only time you don't see race is when you're there because everyone's the same race as you, just like how, you know, and so you think about all the mental energy you currently spend navigating being an outsider that you feel sometimes when you're in North America, when you're like the only Asian guy, when you're the token Asian guy in a group of white people. When you're there, it just frees up. You feel more, for me, I feel more comfortable. I feel more relaxed. And it's like, what could you do with that energy? You know, what could you build, create, or become? Now, the thing is, I mean, if you don't speak the language there, you know, that feeling of belonging can disappear the moment you open your mouth. But that initial feeling, that visual comfort, it's powerful. You know, it's the complete opposite. It's the exhaustion from, you know, 1,000 tiny cuts of, you know, like, where are you really from? It's hard to explain, but I just feel a sense of belonging when I'm there. When I hear, you know, my own language. And it's a feeling that makes me really happy. And it's a feeling that I want to be able to pass on to my next generation. Which brings me to the last point. And this is a point that I never expected to hear. And it's opportunities for kids. This one was a student who said he wanted to learn Mandarin because they actually wanted their kids to grow up in Asia and not in America. See, for a lot of us, especially as we get older, I mean, the desire to, you know, move isn't just about us, right? It becomes about, you know, my kids and my future kids. And this is actually one of the big ones we see. You know, we have students who say, you know, I want my kid to be able to speak Chinese with my parents. Odds are my kid is going to speak even worse Chinese than me. So there's a chance they may not even be able to talk to my family. And so it's that feeling of, you know, not wanting that, almost like the link to your culture being like broken at you. You know, you don't want the culture to die at you in a sense. And so that's actually one of the bigger reasons that we see, you know, people say they want to learn Chinese so they can move to Asia, is because they want their kid to not lose that culture. And the way they view it is like, it's gonna die out eventually if they stay here. And for me, you know, I think it goes even deeper, because I think about the kind of environment that I want my future kids to grow up in. The more I think about it, you know, the less I want a place where it's normalized to do drugs in high school or, you know, be so rebellious. You know, I want a place where I don't have to worry about my child's safety, about them being bullied for their skin color, or about them feeling, you know, unsafe taking public transit to school. Which actually leads me to a fundamental belief I have, which might sound a little controversial, which is that I believe that in the long run, there's actually no such thing as like a permanent Asian American identity. I believe that this transient stage that we're in, right, inevitably leads down one or two paths. On the first path is the family, you know, let's say I stay in North America, right? We lean more and more American. The kids talk to my parents, so my kids talk to me in English, and, you know, I'm obviously fluent in English, so I reply in English. And the native language, you know, Chinese, slowly fades, the cultural ties loosen, and, you know, within a generation or two, our family is fully, you know, westernized, fully American, you know what I mean? And there's nothing wrong with that, first off, right? But it's a choice, right? On the second path, the family decides to lean Asian. Right? We consciously value the culture and make an effort to learn the language. Maybe we're gonna move or spend significant time in Asia to make sure that, you know, my kids can grasp their heritage. I want my child, for example, for me, I want my child to be able to effortlessly switch between English, Cantonese, and Mandarin so that they can actually have a meaningful relationship with their grandparents, which, I mean, is my parents, right? I want my kids to know their roots, know their heritage, know their culture, and be able to navigate the world with like confidence about who they are, that they can't change. You know, they can't change the fact that they're Chinese. And so I've thought about this a lot more as I got older. But like when you become a parent, you, especially as you know, Asian parent, you are at that crossroad, right? You decide what you want for your family. And the environment in North America, I mean, it inevitably makes you want to grow up more, you know, white, more American. Like for me as a kid, I wanted to be as white as I could possibly be, right? I hated being Asian. But as I grew older, I realized how much I value my Asian side. You know, speaking with my family, having deep relations with my grandparents. And so for me, the choice is clear. You know, I know my kids will learn English no matter where they are. Okay, the whole world freaking learns English. Okay, they can be in Asia, they can be in freaking nowhere, and they'll learn English. But I also know that if they stay in North America, the odds of them truly acquiring Chinese is so much lower. And so for me personally, it's one of the reasons they have. They said, I want to actually move my family to Asia because I don't want the culture to die, and I don't want to be in an environment where I have to worry about their safety. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Click here if you're a Cantonese speaker who wants to learn Mandarin, maybe to move to Asia, and click here for a video that YouTube thinks you'll love. Okay, until next time, 再见。